Hello everyone. Welcome. It is Monday, March 21st, 2022 here in Atlanta on a beautiful sunshiny day. It is supposed to be a high of 71 degrees and no humidity, and I don't see maybe a little smithering of a cloud here or there, but otherwise it's like 99% sunny. Beautiful weekend. Hopefully you had a good weekend. I had some fun. Those of you that know me personally know that I love my college basketball. March Madness, they call it. And they had started with 68 teams that played, and then ultimately 64 teams that started playing on Thursday. And they are now down to only 16 teams left, of which my alma mater, Purdue University, is one of those 16 teams. They actually played Texas last night and they won by 10. It's fun to watch if you are into college basketball. It's like the best time of the year. Of course, I like college football as well. So anyway, enjoyed watching my Purdue Boilermakers. They didn't start the game till 9 p.m., so it wasn't over till like 11:30. And it's neat. We have one player that's named Jaden Ivey that's just turned 20, and he is predicted to be one of the top 5 draft picks in the NBA. And his mom went to Notre Dame and played, and he grew up around basketball a lot. And his mom actually beat Purdue in the national championship game in the girls when they were playing. And so Purdue, man, have never been to the Final Four since 1980, since I was 13. So I am looking forward to hopefully seeing the Purdue Boilermakers back in the Final Four for the first time in a long time. So anyway, it's fun to watch, and I understand it doesn't change people's lives, but it's interesting. You think about it. Think about, even when they started like the Olympics and so forth, and they had a race, the marathon, to run whatever 26.2 miles, which was started in Greece. There's a marathon, a city named Marathon, where a person ran to it. But how competition, how games are a part of life, and it seems like really since the creation maybe of the world, that kids would get together and they would play, they would do games and so forth. Of course, competition can get out of hand where there's a whole bunch of people. I know it because I used to coach basketball and coach baseball, and I had parents that would be yelling and screaming, and it's really hard, obviously, trying to appease everyone, keep everybody happy and so forth. But if you are mostly healed, mostly delivered, then you can enjoy things like this, and it's fun. It was fun to watch last night. And Purdue plays again on Friday against St. Peter's, which St. Peter's is would be considered one of the worst teams in the field. But they upset Kentucky, which was one of the best, which is fun to watch some of the small schools beating the large schools. And then St. Peter's beat Murray State, and now they're playing Purdue on Friday night at 7 o'clock. So anyway, boiler up, that's what I say. That's what Purdue's football coach actually used to say. His wife's the one that created that saying of boiler up, because they're boiler makers. So, but Joe Tiller, when he used to coach, when he used to be alive. Upcoming Breakthrough Tour is coming March 27th, next Sunday night. Worldwide Deliverance Session. For those of you that have never watched one of those, that's how it kind of started for me, really, back in 2017, doing these inner healing deliverance teachings, and then taking people through deliverance. And I didn't think that it would work. The Lord told me to do it, and I'm like, "You're crazy, God, that won't work." And he's like, "Yeah, well, try it." So I did, and it has been very successful. Lots of people have watched them, thousands of people around the world, and oftentimes it's the first time that they ever get introduced to our ministry, and when they watch it, they're just shocked, because they're like, "Oh my gosh, this describes myself, this describes my spouse, this describes my kids, this describes my mom and my dad. How do you know all this?" And it's like, by experience. And it's time to get people set free. People in the church need deliverance. Everybody does. Everybody's been hurt. Everybody's been wounded. Everybody gets affected by demonic spirits in their thoughts. That's how it works. You get a thought. That's what I'm teaching on today, is what are your thoughts telling you? So, all right, April 2nd, which is next Saturday, we will be in Dallas, Fort Worth at the Marriott Dallas Las Colinas in Texas. It's between Dallas and Fort Worth. Come out for that, 7 p.m. start time. And then April 8th and 9th will be in Waco, Texas. Walking in Freedom is the host, and having it at the Axe Church, which can hold 300 people. So last time we had it, we kind of ran out of room. We had people coming in from Seattle and Chicago and Atlanta and New Mexico, and so I can't wait to see all the people that come to Waco. It's a happening place. It's a destination spot. If you've ever watched Chip and Joanna Gaines on Fixer Upper, that's where they're at. So come on out. April 8th, that's a Friday night. That's 2 weeks from this Friday. Friday night at 7 p.m. for the breakthrough event. And then April the 9th, we'll be doing a training, deliverance training. Starts at 6 p.m. on April the 9th. And then April 30th, May 1st, be in Merkel, Texas, where I just talked to Larry and his wife Susie, the Tollivers. They were rooting for Texas over Purdue, but Purdue ended up beating them because Purdue has some taller players and a couple people that are more athletic overall, but Texas is a very tough team. So anyway, otherwise they cheer for Purdue, they said, when Purdue's not playing at Texas school. All right, what are your thoughts telling you? So when I first learned about how demonic spirits can affect a person, the majority of the time it's going to be through our thoughts, giving us thoughts that are bad, that cause us to do a number of things. How do you know if you're affected by demonic spirits? Well, what thoughts are you getting? Are the thoughts peaceful? Are they saying, hey, why don't you go for a walk around this lake? Why don't you go love on your wife? Why don't you go surprise your son with this gift or that gift? Or just call them and encourage someone. When you get a lot of positive thoughts, then a lot of those thoughts tend to be from yourself, or it could be from the Lord. But if you get a lot of negative thoughts saying, you know what, you're worthless. You know what, you sinned yesterday, and you sinned again today, and you sin every day, and you're worthless, and you're going to hell. Or if you get a lot of thoughts that cause you to think of sexual things, masturbation, and acting out, all that stuff is demonic. And they have legal rights to do that as long as you're not healed from your past soul wounds. You've not forgiven people that have hurt you in your past, truly forgiven them from your hearts. That's how demons have legal rights to affect Christians. Understand that there's a misnomer, there's a lie that the enemy wants to have taught to us from oftentimes pastors that are from the pit of hell. And that is that you can't be affected by demons, you're a Christian. But then you're like, well, Pastor, but I'm getting all these negative thoughts, and I'm struggling with sexual purity, and I'm mad and I'm angry, and I feel like I want to kill myself, and I have depression. And if the response from the clergy is, well, you just need to go to the doctor and get your checkout. You need to go to the psychiatrist, psychologist. And then what do? They don't have any recourse to get you delivered. So they're like, well, I guess you need to take this medication, that medication. A lot of the medications even have horrible side effects. Some of them are suicidal. So that's dangerous right there. So the number one thing that needs to be done is to take people through truly getting their soul wounds healed, getting forgiving those who hurt them, and then commanding the demons to go that attach to your soul, because the demons are after your soul. Satan's after your soul. He's not going to give up just because you ask Jesus to come into your heart. That's nonsense. He's going to continue to come at you with lots of different negative thoughts, trying to get you to be angry, be bitter, not forgive, have pride, struggle with sexual purity, all these things that would keep you out of heaven. Again, you can ask Jesus into your heart, but if the demons have legal rights to your soul through unforgiveness, largely, through pride, then you're going to struggle with peace. So you have to take the thoughts captive. So I'll explain this. I went through this myself. Again, I grew up in a church, multiple churches, Presbyterian, Church of God, Assembly of God, non-denominational, and not one of them said, you need to make sure you get your soul wounds healed and get delivered from your demons. They're like, oh no, you're good to go. You're good to go. You don't have any demons. And so when I started to think about the thoughts that I truly had, once I had gone through deliverance, this is back in September 2008, it was in 2009 that the Lord spoke to me and said, take those thoughts captive that are coming from the enemy, like Paul talks about, 2 Corinthians 10, 3 through 6. Our battle is not against flesh and blood, it's against demons. So we need to take the thoughts captive. If we don't take the thoughts captive, they'll take us captive. So what I did, and this is like throughout 2009 and 2010 pretty much, is I would intentionally pay attention to thoughts that would come to me. Oh wow, there's a wasp on top of my iPad. Oh, now he flew away. So anyway, I paid attention intentionally to the thoughts that came to me. Now at that time, I was married to a lady that was affected a lot by demonic spirits that would go off on me all the time. Just, sometimes for hours. Sometimes I'd have knives thrown at me, glasses thrown at me, yelled and screamed at. It was crazy. And then she could flip a switch and be all nice and sweet in front of the church and pray in tongues, prophesy. So it was very much rocking my theological world that Christians couldn't have demons, because I'm like, if a Christian can't have demons, I don't know what this is, This is crazy. So anyway, but it was a teaching thing, an experiential thing. Oftentimes the Lord has us all go through experiences to where what's birthed out of that is a lot of understanding and knowledge and wisdom, and then you can help others, and the anointing from the Lord comes with it too. So a lot of you that are struggling or have struggled greatly, when you are over the hump, when you've either the person, if you're in a relationship with someone that's got demonic stuff and they have gotten delivered, then you'll have a lot more peace. Sometimes the Lord will have us separate to get away from people that refuse to get delivered. But you need to pay attention to the thoughts that you're having, and then you need to discern between the thoughts coming from the demonic spirits and thoughts coming from yourself or from the Lord. So oftentimes people that are in the church will tend to think all the thoughts that they hear, if they're prideful, which a lot are from the Lord, where a lot of them are coming from the enemy, straight from the pit of hell. So that those demons will convince them that people that are good, that are godly, that they need to come against them. They either get jealous of them, they get angry at them, they get bitter. The demons in the Pharisees, for example. These were people in the church. They were Pharisees. The demons in them hated Jesus, so they would accuse him of things and try to come against him. So there's modern day people that are in the church, that are in your workforce, your colleagues. I saw that. I had a boss that was very, you could call him narcissistic. I was very mean-spirited and hard to work for, and he kept getting repositioned in the company. And then finally one day I had enough of it, and he was hurting not only me but a group of others that reported to him. So the Lord told me to tell the management about him, so I did. And then ultimately they tried to have him go through some sensitivity training. None of that worked. He needed deliverance. He ultimately got kicked out of the company later on. But there's a lot of people, obviously, that everyone really needs healing and deliverance. But it's extremely important to think about the thoughts that you're getting. So let's say that you've started this journey of getting yourself healed of those wounds of your past, forgiving everyone who has hurt you, and you've taken deliverance, you've commanded demons to go, and what is the next step? The next step really is to discern the thoughts that come to you. Because just because you've gone through inner healing and deliverance doesn't mean, at least in my case, and I believe I think that's why the Lord had me go through this, is that just because you've gone through inner healing and deliverance doesn't mean the demons won't still try to speak to you. Joyce Meyer wrote a book called The Battlefield is the Mind, or The Battlefield of the Mind, and it is true. That is where the battle is. So if I listened to the voices coming from demonic spirits, guess what I would have? I would have fear, anxiety, anger, bitterness, jealousy, trigger, go off on people. That's why a lot of these people that are in the church would be considered Christians don't have the fruit of the Spirit, don't have the peace, aren't walking in sexual purity because they're still hearing and entertaining these demons in their thoughts. So what I had to do specifically is to take the thoughts captive coming from the demonic spirits. And what was interesting to me is on this journey, and it took me, I don't know, probably a year, I think it was, to finally shut it all down. You know, a lot of people follow our ministry and they notice a change instantly, like they don't hear the voices anymore from the enemy, which is great. And maybe the Lord had me continue to walk it out just so I could see how real that it was. But I really did need to discern the thoughts coming from the enemy, because the enemy thoughts would always cause me to, either take offense. Do you know people that have taken offense at the drop of a hat? There's a lot of people that take an offense that are in the church. They take the offense of everything. And that's not how the Lord instructs us. We're supposed to overlook an offense, the Bible teaches. A servant of the Lord also must not strive, but be gentle with all, in hopes that they see the error of their ways and that they can change. That's 2 Timothy 2, 23, 24, and then 25 and 26. So if you've never read that, read that. It's very, very good. So once I started keeping the thoughts that came to me in hand, what I would do is I told the Lord, I'm like, I am going to try to not let them speak more than 3 words. Because if I let them speak more than 3 words, they might get through to me to cause me to have fear and anxiety. I remember once I had a bulge the size of a golf ball in my spine. And that was one of the tests that I had to go through. And it was for 6 weeks. It lasted. I commanded it to be healed. I took my authority. I waited for it to dissolve, and it didn't do it. And then ultimately it did. But what was interesting is during that 6-week time frame, the enemy tried to get a sentence to me telling me that it was cancer, that it was a tumor, that it was a cyst, something like that. And I would cut him off after no more than 3 words. And it was almost like I could see in the spirit realm. There goes a goose. But it was like in the spirit world where I was like putting my arm out and not letting the demon come anywhere closer to my thoughts, to my head, than my, however it is, 2.5 foot of my arm. It's almost like if you're a football fan, college football, there's the Heisman Trophy, where the person's putting his hand behind it, trying to push back the enemy, trying to tackle it, the person that's got the football. And so it was real. It was really real, because the enemy would come and try to say to me, he would start out saying, and I knew the next couple sentences, what he was going to say. He was trying to say, backs don't get healed. If you don't go to the doctor, that could be cancer and you could die. That could be a tumor. That could be a cyst. But I would stop at mid-sentence. I would not let him get to the point where he said cancer and cyst and all that. But I knew where he was trying to get. And I could feel it in myself. I was like, oh my gosh, if I let him speak a sentence, I'm going to get into fear and anxiety and then run to the doctor. And the Lord told me when I was going through this, he said, Nelson, if you run to the doctor, then guess what? That's where your faith is. You no longer have the faith standing on my ground. You're now on the enemy's ground. You're into fear. You're into worry. What it could be. It could be this. It could be that. What about this? What about that? So anyways, I shut it down. And I did so by either redirecting my thoughts on something else that was true, noble, good report. Sometimes I'd pray in tongues. When you're praying in tongues, you can't hear the voice of the enemy. So that's another good tactic to use. But the best, I believe, tactic is to pay attention to the thoughts coming to you. And as soon as you discern, this is a thought that's going to cause me fear. This is a thought that's going to cause me jealousy, anger, bitterness, all these negative things. You take it captive quickly, and then you redirect your thought on something else. You can think about being at the lake. You can go to the lake. You can go for a walk. You can pray in tongues. You can think about sports. You can put on praise music. A myriad of things. But do not allow the enemy to speak a whole sentence, let alone a paragraph. Another example I had was when I was in Chicago, actually with my good friends, Ann Rafferty and her husband, who I just found out, he went to St. Peter's. St. Peter's is playing Purdue on Friday. How ironic is that? He ended up giving me a baseball signed by Pete Rose. So I really like he and his wife. So ultimately, I was there doing a Facebook Live, and behind me was a river, and these two guys were in a canoe. And as they were going past me, and I'm speaking, doing this, the Lord showed me, Nelson, if the enemy, if the demonic spirit was behind you on a canoe, and you were paddling, and you heard the demon trying to speak to you, to get you to have worry and fear and anxiety and anger, bitterness, whatever, what would you do? Would you let the demon keep speaking to you? I'm like, heck no. I would take my oar and I would whack it off and tell it to shut its mouth, and then continue on my canoe ride in peace. And he said, that's what my people, that's what God's people need to do, is take those thoughts captive. Because he said there's too many of them that are being taught wrong teaching, false teaching from pastors that have no clue about the demonic world. Aw, there's two geese over there. Did you know that's one of my talents, is I can sound like a goose? Or a duck, I guess. So anyways, he said too many pastors have no clue that there is how the enemy works. So he's like, if you're fighting a battle from getting taught from a pastor that demons can't affect Christians, he said, you're already losing that battle because they're lying to you. He said, my gosh, he said, that's one of the first things that a pastor should help a person with is, of course, getting the wounds healed, forgiving, but also getting delivered from their demons. And they need to be doing this on a consistent basis because they're going to have new people coming into the church. So anyway, we got to take the thoughts captive immediately. If we don't take the thoughts captive, then you're going to listen to sentences and paragraphs, and you're not going to be at peace. You're going to be a mess. And so this is a book I wrote called Keep Your Peace On, that is available on Amazon, that I highly recommend. Some people, when I came out with it, said that was the best book you've ever written. And I was like, oh no, Restored to Freedom was. And you're like, no, because this is a daily struggle that most people have. So it's true. The demonic thoughts that come to a person. So it was interesting. The people that had followed our ministry that noticed that the thoughts that they were getting were no longer coming. They weren't getting the demonic negative thoughts anymore. They were blown away. They're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So there was a study done in 2005 by the National Science Foundation. Well, put it this way. I was in Boise, Idaho, and the Lord spoke to me, and he said, how many thoughts a day do you think the average person has that's not been healed and delivered? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like anybody that's done a study on that. And the Lord said they did. There was a study done on this. Look it up. Google it. And I'm like, you're crazy, God. Nobody did a study on thoughts. How can you do that? And so I Googled it. How many thoughts a day does the average person has? And I found National Science Foundation in 2005 did a study that found that people could have more than 12,000 thoughts a day, of which 80% of their thoughts were negative. 95% the same thoughts they had the day before. Lord said those are demonic thoughts. He said these are people, some of them are not churchgoers, some of them are churchgoers, but he said they're all getting hit by thoughts from the enemy. And the enemy's having a field day laughing about it because people are getting triggered to get angry, to get bitter, to kill people, to murder people, to have sex with other people, to masturbate, pornography, all these things. He said, and it's because they're allowing the enemy to speak to them. So he said the churches need to teach the truth, and they're not. And he wasn't happy. And I'm like, wow. I go, that explains everything. That's why the divorce rate's 50% in the church. That's why 50% of pastors look at pornography on a regular basis and have no intimacy in their marriage. I'm like, oh my gosh. Again, not all of them. There's some pastors that are good, that are godly, that are pure, that are healed and delivered. And some of those have wives that need to be healed and delivered. So anyways, it's extremely important for all of us to take the thoughts captive. And you got to forgive people. As far as part of being healed and delivered, truly forgive them from your heart. And how do you do that? How do you forgive people from your heart? You ask Jesus. Like right now, if you have someone that did something wrong to you, something bad to you in your growing up years, how do you get healed from that? You go back to that in your mind. You start thinking about, gee, what did I feel like when that happened? I felt mad, or I felt hurt, or I felt ashamed. And then what do? You ask Jesus to come speak to you about it. Say, Jesus, show me from your perspective. Why did that person do those things to me? Sorry about that. There's some bugs there. Go away. And the Lord will come and he'll speak to you and he'll show you that those people were hurt as well. Oftentimes we get hurt by our own moms and dads, or sexual things that happen to us. And the sexual things that happen to us, if a person's touching us or showing us pornography, then they've also been infected with these demonic spirits. So we have to forgive. And we can forgive anyone, just like Jesus forgave those who killed him. He's our example. If we don't forgive others, then God can't forgive us. And then you'll be struggling with those demonic thoughts your whole life. So once you forgive a person for hurting you, oftentimes pride has come in, the spirit of Leviathan in Job 41, verse 34, king over all the children of pride. And we need to humble ourselves from that pride and ask the Lord if we need to. Lord, humble me from that pride so that I can get healed and delivered. So when you're healed and delivered, then what will happen is you will be able to start to discern the voice of the enemy versus the voice of the Lord or yourself. And I've been walking in this now since, a lot of peace, really, since 2015. Ended up getting away from a person that was extremely volatile and demonic. And when that happened, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm like, I have a lot of peace now. And then the Lord would speak to me about things and I would hear him. And as far as the enemy, I'm like, it was interesting. I'm like, I don't let the enemy speak to me anymore. So I'm going to have a lot of peace all the time. I'm not going to worry, not going to fear, not going to be angry or bitter. Just going to enjoy the moment, enjoy life every day. Go for walks, take a walk. It's a peaceful walk time to go. I can't imagine if I was in a huge city, like the inner city, trying to have peace. It'd be very hard because there'd be a lot of people that have demonic spirits that would be triggering being selfish and angry and bitter. And so, but all of us can take our thoughts captive, because if we don't, then the thoughts will take us captive. And we need to then speak life out. Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. It's good to have fruit of the Spirit and not fruit of the flesh. Galatians 5:16 through 26. And I had a couple people in the last week that were not believing that Christians could be affected by demons. And I'm like, what? I'm like, have you been to the church lately? Have you been around church people lately? Have you been around ministries? Even those who have powerful fruit in their ministries, people's lives and stuff, but even Matthew 7:21-23 says a lot of those people aren't going to get into heaven. So I'm like, there's a huge amount that need healed and delivered that are in the church, and they're a mess. And it's the truth. And the people that have followed our ministry would corroborate that and say, absolutely. If you're ever married to a person that has the spirit of Jezebel, you will never have peace. They will criticize you. They will blame you. They will take an offense at everything. And they're oblivious to it most of the time because they're not taking their thoughts captive. The thoughts have taken them captive, and they're a mess. And so, yes, Christians do get affected by demons. If they would just be taught the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, then we can get the people healed and delivered. Now, I do believe that we will see a change in our government. I do believe that we're not going to see the one last great revival. I believe, though, that inner healing and deliverance is what's going to allow the revivals to happen and to last. And again, we need the leadership to be healed and delivered. So God's in the process of doing that. Alrighty. Well, I'm going to let you go and have a great rest of your day. All right. See ya. Bye. Saying